because I was reading all of the comments to John Denton, and then I read this other MLB.com article just because I thought it was fun about their writers predicted where the free agents would go. And I said, I'm not going to crush Mozeliak for comments. I'm gonna see what they do. But he has already clearly walked back the 3 starters to 2, and we'll see.
That's what he said. I mean, I know it's not on the social media, but he said that on the final day when we had him on live, and I wish we had that clip, because he said, well, things changed. We said 3 at the deadline, before the deadline, and we think we have other pieces. So I go, well, wait. I said, so you're saying the goal is not 3 starters now, it's changed. And he did a little backpedaling. So he's been, since that interview, he's been kind of backpedaling on the 3 starters. We talked about it on the show. I brought that up. Yeah, I didn't love hearing that. But I do think if they get 2 real frontline starters and another starter, they're going to be fine. But they got to go get, real frontline type pitchers. They have to.
And to be fair, I can read the comment, but I believe he said
that. He's been saying
no.
That.
But this was slightly different in the sense that he was talking about free agency specifically, and he said, 2 starters in this particular market, and then we'll see what happens in the next market, which is the trade market. So it could still be 3. It could be 2 via free agency, 1 via trade.
So they've said all along they'll trade for a starter. They have the pieces to make something happen where you get something decent, right? You just have to probably part with something you don't want to see go.
Like who?
Well, for Cardinals, who has to go?
Who would you not want to see go?
I don't want to see
Newt
go. I don't want to see Donovan go. But those are 2 guys
Gorman,
whose names have been Gorman. Those are guys I don't want to see go, whose names have been brought up via trade rumors in the past. But to get something,
that's what they're going to want.
To get something, you have to give up something. And let's face it, the biggest need right now is starting pitching. I think there's consensus.
Of those 3, what would be the worst one? Who would you not want to see go out of those 3? Newt, Gorman.
I don't want to see any of
Donovan.
them go. I think, first of all, I think Newt's an energy guy who has tremendous upside going forward. Tommy Edmonds, another name that's been brought up as a possible trade chip. Gorman could be an all-star. If he could be a second baseman
bombs,
with power. His back issues, I think, he's so young, which makes him really intriguing. Got the back issues. I don't want to see him go, though.
Yeah.
But they need pitching. And I'm not saying those are the guys that are going to go. These are guys whose names have been thrown around with trade rumors.
And Derek Gould reported that he was on about 4 different teams in his article. It was Mariners, it was Blue Jays, it was Yankees. I can't remember the other team, but he did report that the Yankees, and he mentioned Donovan and Alec Burleson for the Yankees. And I think Donovan is the guy, even though I love him. First of all, I'd rather see Edman go because he's older. But if you're talking about those guys, I just think it's tougher. Like, Gorman might hit 40 bombs. Those guys don't fall off trees from left-handed hitters. Nootbaar is like a really good all-around player, and he has more power. So I think Edman first for me. But if people don't want Edman as much, to me, just because Brendan Donovan is a super utility guy who's really good, but he's probably not going to hit 25 homers, I think you can find guys like Brendan Donovan easier than you can Gorman and Nootbaar.
And in some ways, Gorman and Edman, in terms of where they can be utilized, are redundant. Some guys, Edman, a little more speed, better in the outfield, but Donovan can hit for average and has a little bit more pop, or may have a little more pop. I mean, both guys have pluses, but they're kind of redundant in the way you utilize them.
Let me check out the Audio Exchange and Kirkwood text line. Big Mike, you like that, baby?
I do.
I know. I'm doing pretty
Already?
dang good.
Yeah,
We have to stop mentioning him?
No.
Yeah,
we don't have to.
Are you just counting just a count? Because I'm hooking them up.
I'm going to call it
That's
the
my
Neil.
boy.
I'm going to call it the Neil Westfall text line.
No.
Yeah.
5 is the
Neil
target
Westfall's Audio Exchange and Kirkwood text line.
Yes.
There
Brought
it
to you
is.
by Neil Westfall.
Yeah. I would bet my life savings that the Cards get outbid on the big-name starters, and we get a Walker type and a trade for 2, and this team still sucks because of that brain-dead manager, and all we have to listen to the cat defend this dumpster fire for another year. Congrats to Skip and the future Padres coach Schilt for getting the hell out of this mess while they could. Big Mike, and he's not going to be there Saturday.
Big Mike says Ollie's making the trades. Is that what he said?
Did I mess that up?
It's Ollie's fault.
I didn't know that.
Yes, that's true. Ollie's making all the deals.
All right, my bad.
I have no faith in the Cardinals front office. The definition of insanity is believing in something that clearly doesn't work. Believing in Mozeliak to have success this offseason is a damn joke. Nothing will happen. And we will be seeing Klaus this Saturday at the Post in Creve Coeur.
Oh, he's going to be gambling. Is Matt Whitener going to be there? Because Klaus and Matt Whitener may be talking parlays.
Matty doesn't go to bars. Matty's going to stay at home.
Cigar
and hang
lounges.
Yeah.
Matty doesn't go out, you know.
Yeah, he stays
He's
at
a
home.
homebody. He's a homebody.
Can I just say-
I don't even think Matty's been in his new home yet.
By the way, and I truly, Cole, you know I love you, but I just found that very funny, and we all do it. But we were like right in the middle of like a very hardcore Cardinals conversation, and there were more Cardinals texts coming, and just like out of nowhere, you had to really mention that Bill Bradley was coming on Frank's show.
I received a text said, need you to promote Bill Bradley's interview on Frank's show at 11:30.
Who was it from?
Joe. Although someone told
What'd you
him
guys talk about
to request
yesterday?
it.
What was the
That's
big?
all right, but he also made it like it was for me because I'm a Knicks guy. So I'm fine
Well,
with
I
it.
just didn't want to
I'm
forget.
fine with it.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm fine with it.
What was the big topic yesterday on Frankie's show? What was he talking about?
Well, I don't, dude, this is radio. When I go home, I forget what we talked about.
I'm just asking.
I gotta go back and look.
That's true.
A lot of trans news.
I was going to say that's what I wanted to hear.
He told a fun story about John Wood and Bobby Knight and Rick Majerus. That was pretty cool.
What was the story? Because I saw that and I was about to click on it and I didn't, but
What'd he say?
I was intrigued.
Segment 3 on the podcast.
Okay.
I probably will listen. I was just super busy.
It's a short segment, too, so it's not like you have to invest a whole half hour. There you go. It was also talking about the realistic possibility of a 10-2 season to open the show for the Mizzou Tigers.
How does Mizzou look this year?
Basketball?
Basketball.
1-0. Undefeated is what they look like.
That's it then.
That's it. That's all you need.
That's all I need to know.
Don't they have the number one recruiting class in the country by some publications?
I think so.
How much would they beat
And
SLU by?
I'd love to see that game.
Why
They
don't
should
they play
actually
each
play
other?
those freaking.
Why don't they?
I'm just so tired of that. We've been doing this for probably before I even got here, but for 15 years, 16 years, we constantly bring that up, and they just won't play each other. Everybody wants to see that game. Everybody in
That'd
the
be
state,
awesome.
everybody in the region.
They should have. I've always felt this about college basketball. You got to have like an in-state tournament because there are so many teams where you actually could do that. Get UMKC, get Lindenwood. Are those teams going to win the state tournament? Probably not. But the state of Missouri should come up with something.
I want to see SLU and Mizzou, baby.
For sure.
I would love.
What would the
awesome.
score be? What would the line be?
You don't even know who's on SLU this year.
I didn't know last year, or the year
I did.
before, or the year before, or the year before.
I have to. So SLU has started. Last night they
Wait,
played.
this is
they played with like Lincoln,
Lincoln,
Missouri,
yeah. In-state?
and it was they're D2, and it was a preseason scrimmage for them. By the way, the rules go for SLU was a real game, but obviously SLU won that single-handedly. I'm a big SLU guy. I always go down to 1 or 2 games every year. I stay for the whole game.
Chafin's.
Virtue signaling.
I
But I
know.
stay for the whole game. But they're fun to watch. Bally's has a bunch of games. The A10 network has a bunch of games. I usually get into it too early yet, so I can't give my prognostication.
I want to sit next to
on SLU.
Rammer and have him get pissed at the refs again.
Boy, he's great.
Yeah.
Rammer's great on radio.
I like to hear his little rants on the refs when he gets riled up.
He said 38 years he's been doing it.
Wow.
SLU. And Earl's been doing
38.
it, I feel like, maybe not 38, but I think 33-ish. Somebody correct
That's
me.
a good squad together, those two. Awesome.
Mo has lost the Cardinals over $400 million in awful free agent signings. So you really expect him not to make another mistake?
You guys must really think that Bill DeWitt is dumb. Like I get it. He's DeWallet and he's a Scrooge and doesn't care about the fans. He does. But I mean, they kind of know what they're doing. They had an awful season last year. They hope for better. Trust me, if things go badly this year, we're going to see results of that.
Yeah.
But I think it's also fair to say that it's been a downward trend for about 5 years, and it just really, the crap hit the fan in 2023. But it was on a downward trend, even with the minor leagues, and they were able to kind of always fight through it. After 50-50 starts, they were able to add pitching at the deadline 2 consecutive years. They were able to play in a division that, let's be real, is not one of the big boys. So I do think, look, we were all wrong, but if you kind of peel back the onion, I do think you could have seen 2023 coming because all they had to do was fall off. I didn't see anybody that thought the Cardinals had good starting pitching. I didn't see anybody mention that. I think almost everybody thought the Cardinals were going to be the same team they were 2 previous years, which was treading water for 100 games, probably around 500, add the pitching at the deadline, then they get to the 90 wins. But the thing is they took a step back. They never got to 500, and thus there was no reason to improve the team. You sell off. That's how you get the 90 losses.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And if you said there's been a downward trend, I agree with that. But I don't think you could have seen that coming, what we saw last year. I mean, that was a precipitous drop-off. It didn't follow the downward trend. And a lot of it had to do with the way the season unfolded. Everyone knew that the starting rotation was a weak point for him. I don't think everyone foresaw a collapse the way it did, and
Agreed.
That's the difference.
But here's my point. Going into the year, I didn't see one publication, I didn't hear anybody, TV, radio, print, that thought the Cardinals starting rotation was good. And if you look at all these people that rank them, I mean, the best I saw was maybe 15th. I saw folks that said their rotation's 25th in baseball. So my point is, when people said, hey, we all said the Cardinals are going to win 89 or 91, we all said that. But I think most people thought it was going to be the same script of the previous 2 years. I don't believe anybody actually thought the team as constructed was going to be 90 wins. It was going to be, yes, we have to add this pitching at the deadline, which they did the previous 2 years. The previous 2 years, they were hanging right around 500 at the trade deadline both times. They were not a 90-win team as constructed. They became a 90-win team by adding Lester, Happ, and then the next year, Quintana, Montgomery.
Or, and I think your point was well taken, I think, yesterday, or they were banking on someone, a young pitcher stepping in like a Liberatore, and being a solution for the starting rotation, which things like that had happened in the past, but didn't happen. There were a bunch of young guys that got a shot at things, and it didn't work out. There's a lot of reasons. I'm not trying to say that that's the reason where it went south, but I think they were also banking on someone getting traction.
I agree with you, but let's play it out. Let's say the Cardinals actually were 500 with the team as constructed last year at the deadline. Let's just say that the offense was great, the defense was great, the base running was great, even though the starting pitching sucked. Let's just say they were still 55-55 at the trade deadline. As constructed, you would have kept Montgomery instead of trading him. You would have kept Flaherty instead of trading him. But you still for sure would have added 2 pitchers. You would have replaced Waino. Waino never would have had the concert and the 200 wins if they were winning. He would have been done. And you would have replaced Matz. For a while, he was replaced in the bullpen. And then who was the 5th starter at the end of the year? I mean, Zach Thompson, we'll see what happens. But my point is...
I've lost track.
The point is, if the Cardinals were 55-55 last year at the trade deadline, they absolutely would have added 2 pitchers again at the trade deadline.
I just think...
Just like they did the previous 2 seasons.
If you were looking at Jack Flaherty as a guy who could be a front-of-the-rotation guy last season, I don't think you would have been laughed out of the room. I think there were people that, he's coming off injury. We're not sure what you have in him. But he was a disaster. I don't think you could have foreseen all those things that could have gone right going wrong, and then within their own sphere, in-house, having no solutions. To me, that was the biggest issue.
But to me, the difference was, entering the season last year, I didn't hear anybody question defense. I didn't hear anybody question base running. Some people questioned offense, but I think some folks forgot how good the offense was the previous year. But everybody that I saw did question the starting pitching. And the starting pitching imploded even worse than we thought it potentially would.
It's November, and the Cat is still apologizing for this crap team. Everyone in baseball said they needed pitching last year, except the Cardinals. Spartan 4-4. Are you going to be there Saturday, by the way, at the Post?
I think he is.
Let me know. I think he's military, too.
And remember, at winter warm-up, John Mozeliak at winter warm-up, after they signed Contreras, remember the famous quote? He goes, maybe 3 months from now, 6 months from now, I will have been wrong. Remember, he sat down at winter warm-up and said that when people are asking him, should you get more pitching? He said, I think we're good, but maybe, and we can find the exact quote, but he goes, maybe months from now, we're going to look at this and say I was wrong.
Is John Mozeliak one of the 10%, by the way, with that outbreak at the GM meetings? Is he healthy?
There was a flu outbreak.
Is he doing okay?
I don't know. I did ask him to come on this show and got no response.
Oh, gosh dang it, Mo.
Busy week.
I wanted to talk to you.
They painted themselves in a corner last year. None of the 5 starting pitching had flexibility to be sent down or to the pen. 618.
Thompson.
Hey, Cole, ask Mr. Cat Stevens Matz. Hey, Cole, ask Mr. the Cat Steven Matz if he is as good as he was towards the end of the season when he got hurt, what his thoughts are, and him being a solid number 3 if he could stay healthy.
Do you think Steven Matz is a solid number 3 if he can stay healthy?
No, I think anytime you bring up Steven Matz's name, you have question marks because he's got a track record of being injured. Is he a guy at the end of the rotation that if he's good, he'll surprise you? But he hasn't done it yet. So except for one season, basically, part of one, I would say, yeah, there's always going to be a question mark. When he's healthy, I think he can pitch. Can he stay healthy? It's a lot like Tyler O'Neill. I like Tyler O'Neill. I'm a defender of Tyler O'Neill. And then he got hurt with a bunch of different things. That's your track record. That's who you are.
I was thinking about this yesterday as I was watching these predictions of where these pitchers might go and what they might make. And all these guys like the Montes, the Nolas, the Snells of the world are probably all going to make 5 years, 125. And then Yamamoto probably 200. And Sonny Gray probably 60 over 3, whatever it is. And I was thinking to myself, now you can't really construct your team this way because you do want young, controllable, good pitchers. But it would probably be a better model if every time you had a starting pitcher opening, you signed the 1-year deal guy for the $15 million or 12, the Wakas of the world, and then whatever happens at the deadline, then you could just like super deploy all your resources and add a bunch of stud bullpen pieces, because then all of a sudden you get to the postseason anyway, and these guys bullpen their way through the postseason.
It's a good point. And if you look at all the big ticket pitchers right now that come with huge price tags, all of them have question marks, right? I mean, Nola had a bad regular season, good in the postseason, right? You look at Montgomery, great in the postseason, but we saw him good with the Cardinals last year, but he's been okay at other stretches, right? Snell is a really good pitcher, Cy Young guy, except he's never going to – he doesn't go like 200 innings. He'll give you 30 starts.
A lot of
he
walks.
always gives you 30 starts, but 170, 180 innings. All the Yamamoto looks like the real thing, young, but will it translate to the United States? So the thing is, you lock up one of these guys for 5 or 6 years and it doesn't work out, you are hamstrung. So I think what you're saying is it almost makes sense kind of just to go short term and mitigate the possible risk. Because all those, right? I mean, do we agree? And I'm not saying I would love to have Nola. I would love to have Snell. But don't you think when you're talking long-term contract with big money that there are legitimate question marks at each level with these guys?
Not only that, this has been discussed a lot. Name me the good St. Louis Cardinals free agent contract of the John Mozeliak era, of a guy coming in, not a guy who is already here in Matt Holliday, not a guy who you re-signed after you traded for him, Paul Goldschmidt, not Albert Pujols back in the day. When the Cardinals were really, really good, they didn't sign any of these deals we're talking about. Every time they've signed a deal, we've absolutely crushed them for it.
Yeah.
True. Well, let's go down the list here.
Name me one.
I'll name you about 5. We're now saying Cardinals spend $100 million twice.
Yeah.
They've never even spent $80 million well. Every free agent contract they've signed since I've been here, I'm talking the guys they added. Let's name them.
Dexter Fowler.
Mike Leake. Okay, Brett Cecil, that's $30 million, whatever. But
still, relative to a reliever, that's a lot of money.
It's early on, but Wilson Contreras, $87.5. You're already trying to switch his positions.
Yeah.
My point is, every time the Cardinals have spent $80 million, We've hated the contract, and now we're telling him to spend $100+ million twice.
So what's the solution?
I don't know. The solution is this. I do know. The solution is what they did from 9, 11 to 15.
Develop.
They just churned out stud pitchers through the draft constantly.
Yeah.
And they lost. So what you're saying is they've lost their fastball.
No, they've
Quite
continued.
literally.
No, they've continued to draft those guys, and then they trade them away. We would not be having any of these issues if they would have. And look, I get it.
Hoard your prospects.
No, Alcantara, Gallen, and I understand you got Jack Flaherty. You got to trade somebody. It is what it is. You needed offense. All I'm saying is they never used to trade away the studs. Now they've traded away a lot of studs.
For Cal, 2012 was pretty good.
But these are all one-year deals.
Berkman.
Johnny
This is my
Peralta.
point.
Johnny Peralta.
All-star.
Jahani.
That was,
Honey.
first of all of their deals that are good are usually about 1 year, 2 year deals. Beltran, Berkman, the Furcalls of the
What about
world.
Stone Buddha, Sangwon-Oh?
Okay, that's fine. Couple years for what? 10?
How come he's not
Taguchi.
on this list? Sangwon-Oh was really good for them.
Even Johnny Peralta. That was an okay.
Jahani, thank you.
It was okay.
Jahani.
Didn't they DFA him in his final
No,
year?
we're just talking about ones we
They
didn't
did?
hate. Signings we didn't hate.
I
Okay,
knew that
but-
Johnny Peralta was an all-star. I didn't know he got DFA'd in his final year.
I believe his final year.
I think he did.
Oh,
But
that's
here's
bad.
my point. I'm not even complaining about that contract. It's a fair contract to bring up. But if you talk about long deals, what was Peralta? Was it 4 or 5 years for 50 or 60, Cat? I don't even remember.
I don't remember.
Either way, you could probably make the case that the best big free agent contract that John Mozeliak has ever signed is Johnny Peralta with Wilson Contreras to be determined. Is that fair? Wasn't it 4
I
years,
like
44?
Sangwon-Oh.
Was it 4 years, 44-ish? Johnny Peralta?
4-year 53.
Okay. That was fine. I don't think anybody's complaining about
There's
that.
a whole section, controversy with free agent signing. I have to read this before I comment on it.
What
Unless
about
any of you remember it off the top of your
KK?
head.
All these deals are great.
Yeah.
These 1 and 2 year deals for folks from the Asian market are fine. I'm just saying the big deals, we're begging John Mozeliak to sign 2 pitchers for over $100 million. Every time they sign a player for more than $60 million, we bitch and complain in their horrible contracts.
Here's what I think is going to happen. I don't know who's who, but I think they're going to write a big check for one of the free agent pitchers. Gray seems like the front runner. Seems like a fit. I think they're going to trade for someone who's a possible frontline guy, and they're going to sign another free agent like a Walker or something who could be, shorter, less money.
And that's why, look, I wouldn't want to be John Mozeliak right now because I agree with you, Kat. Like, all these dudes have question marks. First of all pitchers have question marks. I mean, look at DeGrom. They signed him. He doesn't even pitch. They still win the World Series. Guys get injured so quickly. It's almost like, do you want him to already have Tommy John or do you want him to not, but then they might get it? Hey, do you want the workhorse because he gave you 200 innings, but wait, maybe he's tired and he's broken down. Like, literally, you could go through Nola. Maybe he's thrown too many innings. Montgomery, you could go Snell. Does he not throw enough? Does he walk too many guys? Every single one of these dudes is 31 years old. So everyone, you're going to pay all of them a 5th year that you don't want to.
See, and what will happen?
That's the truth.
Or what could happen? They sign Nola, right? And there's a big news conference. There's Mo with his arm around, 2 thumbs up, and everyone's like, good for you. You spent some money. And then when his arm blows out, you idiots.
Right.
That's what'll happen. And all the texters who have never gotten anything wrong will pretend that they knew it was a terrible sign.
One thing that I question, though, about whether it be Nola or Yamamoto or anybody who's viewed as somebody who can last deep in games, I wonder if they come to the Cardinals, if the Cardinals are going to enable that. Or if the Cardinals' strategy...
What do you mean enable?
I wonder if the Cardinals' strategy is to have their starters go 5 or 6 innings. And so Nola, who's known to go deeper into games, I wonder if he came here, if he'd be even allowed to do that.
That's a good question. No one wants their starter to go 5. Okay, no one wants their starter. That will destroy your bullpen. But I think it's a legitimate thing to say, we don't really want our guys trying to go 9 or 8. We want them to stay as fresh as possible. If I'm the Cardinals and a guy's pitching well, I let it eat. I don't even think about that, but I do think it's a legitimate question.
I think it's a good question, but we've seen they're fine with dudes. Miles Michaelis, they have no problem with Miles Michaelis going 200 innings. In recent years, if he's healthy, I know he's older, but they would have no problem with big old 6'7" country music star Adam Wainwright going 200 innings. If Monty had pitched the whole season, I don't think they'd have any problem with Jordan Montgomery.
He loves Monty
200.
wants to go now.
Right. Flaherty was different because Flaherty was always coming off an injury. So, like, he never had the season to build on to get to the 200. Like, I don't know if he ever pitched 200. I think the one year he maybe had 175. I can't remember. But if you bring Aaron Nola over, I don't think the Cardinals would have one issue with him throwing 190 or 200 innings.
I would say that would be the goal, except I do wonder if you sign this guy for 6 years at whatever the price tag is, are you trying to bubble wrap him a little bit? Maybe at a caution. I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe.
But all you want, let's be real about this. And I know we always rip the Cardinals for this, but sometimes you understand why you got to get in and you got to be healthy. Like, you wouldn't care if you sign Nola, he's hurt, he only makes 20 starts, but you get in the playoffs and he's healthy for the postseason. I know we always say the Cardinals, and I do it too, they got to get to 95 wins, they got to be more elite. But in recent years, you've seen teams like, look at the Diamondbacks this year, look at the Braves. The year the Braves won, they were the exact same as the Cardinals. I remember going to that. I went to a game with my mom right around trade deadline. Both teams were 500-ish. The Cardinals added Lester and Happ and went on a nice little run. The Braves added an entire new outfield. Remember, it was Adam Duvall, and it was Jock Peterson.
Eddie Rosario.
It was Rosario, and it was
Jorge
Soler. Those teams were both they were 54 and 54. They played a really fun competitive series. Both teams went from 500. Cardinals surged with the pitching. Braves really surged with the new offense and won the World Series that year.
So I agree with that, but we've argued on this dais before. I'm a big proponent of getting in and climbing through that window of opportunity. I hear that all the time. They're good enough to win, to get in the postseason, but they'll never win it. You don't know. You don't know if they're going to win it or not. No one knows if they're going to win it or not. And by the way, with the signings of Happ and Lester, full disclosure, at the time, I kind of thought that was them waving the white flag.
We all did.
I never thought that those guys would be that good and could lead them to a run.
And this is why young Cole, who we love, needs to stop questioning the Lance Lynns of the world when they're on another team, to not think you can't bring that guy to a more winning culture, and all of a sudden that 7.6 ERA becomes a 4 or a 3 ERA.
Yeah, but that doesn't fulfill his inner desire to destroy.
It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how the whole, and this is kind of an intangible, so there is no way to quantify it, the whole change of scenery in baseball. Just give him a change of scenery, maybe it'll work out. I'm like, well, that kind of seems like a lazy narrative, but sometimes it works.
What about different ballpark, different pitching coach, different pitching lab, different strategies, different analytics, different catcher?
Okay, makes sense.
So look at Joe Kelly, right? Joe Kelly was a disaster with the White Sox. That team felt like a disaster. Just being around them, waiting for those guys to come out of the dugout, right, to do an interview. When you ask PR, hey, is Kelly in there? I don't know where he is. Hey, what time is Link coming in? Who knows? Like, it just seemed,
suck.
It seemed like that was everyone saying we give, we're terrible, and all of a sudden Joe Kelly goes to the Dodgers. He had a little injury and all of a sudden he's a different guy. He's effective again. I'm not saying a change of scenery saves a bad pitcher from being bad. I'm saying sometimes if there's still something in there and a team's playing in a bad situation, sometimes you get a player to a different place. And he's better.
Well, then I guess that's something that...
And there's a million examples of that.
Then I guess I would ask Mo that if he ever came on the show, I would say...
He's scared of you.
Hey, Mo's scared of me. He's so scared of me. What I would ask Mo, one of my many questions would be, well, how do you identify...
Well, let's limit to a few. You wouldn't carry the conversation.
No, I would...
I want you to.
We would rotate. Trust me, I would love to. But I know how this works. I'm the fourth voice. But what I would ask him is,
in that interview,
how do you identify which
he would say as a male?
Yes, as a male. How do you identify which bad pitchers they get? Like, how do you identify?
You don't think they have? We've talked about it. They have analytics, right? Like,
okay, well, I would
they
say,
talk about hitters pitching in bad luck. They talk about pitchers pitching in some bad luck. They have analytics that they could look at.
Okay, well, what do they? Well, then I would ask him, what did it say about Lester, and what did the analytics say about Happ? Because just throwing out the word analytics
We talked about this yesterday, though, and I know
did. It was lengthy.
everybody makes fun of me. It's fine, but I'm telling you, like, the ERA, there's a lot of luck. So whatever behind-the-scenes numbers, whether it's FIP, whether it's BABIP.
You weren't here for that?
You can have...
No, I was. I just would want to know
look,
which stats in particular.
Cool. You can have a pitcher, let's say 100 games in. It is very easy for a pitcher to get bad lucked, a.k.a. BABIP'd, to a 5 ERA when under normal circumstances that ERA should be 3.5. That happens all the time. All the time. And so there are all those behind-the-scene metrics of whiff rate or with hitters, hard hit rate, barrel rate, where whether it's bad luck hitting, whether it's like we talked about this with the Cardinals, and we all joked about this. And look, I think this is another thing with the Cardinals I complained about from day one. They came across as very weak with the excuses with the soft contact. But it is true. I don't think you should bitch about it constantly because I think you look like whiners and losers. But the soft contact thing can be true. Like a pitcher through 100 games, through 20 starts, can really have bad luck that adds a point and a half to his ERA. Right. Where all of a sudden, okay, better luck, different ballpark, boom, that 5 ERA pitcher is very easily now a 3 ERA pitcher.
I get you. All I'm saying is I would ask Mo specifically, like, hey, for this pitcher that you brought in, just for like, what numbers specifically did you look at?
Go ahead,
for J Happ or for John. What did they say? Just for interesting conversation. Yes, Mr. the Cat.
So I don't think it just has to be numbers. Like I said, that's a piece of the puzzle. Stats are a piece of the puzzle. But they could also, like, let's say it's a pitcher they've seen a lot. Maybe he's been in the Central. Maybe he was someone like Joe Kelly, a former Cardinal. And they look at the tape of the guy, and they go, he's still throwing 98. He's still got movement on the slot. Look, his arm slot's off. We could fix that. Like, he's on the White Sox now. No one gives a crap. No one's, I'm not saying that's the case with Joe Kelly. It's just an example. Like, they could see something in a pitcher that they think this is the solution to get him on track. It's worth rolling the dice on that guy.
And not only that, you'll see the analytics these guys have is insane. They'll say, you know what? Your slider sucks. We don't want you to ever throw your slider. Come over here. It could be like, go back to the days of Dave Duncan. All these reclamation projects. And again, if you really simplify it, it was a lot of dudes who threw hard and they threw four-seam fastballs. You bring them over, you throw sinkers, you pitch to contact. Now, that was the 90s and the early 2000s. It's different now with no shift. But, I mean, for years, the Dave Duncan philosophy was pretty simple. We're going to take all these hard throwers, these Chris Carpenters, these Kyle Loesch's that try to overpower you, throw 95-plus four-seamers. We're going to have you throw 92 to 93 sinkers, pitch to contact, ground balls.
And here's another thing about Dave Duncan that people don't realize. As old school as we think of him, because he was totally old school, he was like an analytics guy before other pitching coaches, other pitching staff used analytics to that extent. He had this giant binder with him while in the middle of games. There were no iPads or anything. He had a giant binder with all this data in there. So he was kind of new school while being old school.
Whew. Get him in, by the way, 855-282-8255. The Audi Exchange in Kirkwood text line blowing up as usual.
There's 6.
And Bill Bradley's coming up.
Bill Bradley at
11:30.
Dollar Bill.
Bill Bradley, 11:30 from Crystal Lake?
City.
Crystal City. Somebody chirped me on the text line about not knowing where Crystal City is.
Do you know why I complained about that?
No.
Take a guess. I was joking.
Why I interrupted this segment?
No, I was just joking. I just have to edit out of the YouTube. It was a really nice long 1 hour Cardinals conversation.
Oh, yeah.
I was joking.
Oh, I thought you were making fun of me because I'm the one who wants to talk sports and I interrupted a sports conversation.
No, it was solely based on YouTube.
Oh.
Mick chimes in.
I'm sorry.
Nola had elbow surgery 6 years ago. He'll be 31 years old next June. His 12-9 record with a 4.46 ERA this year doesn't impress me. Stay away from this guy. He'll break down soon enough.
I agree with a lot of that.
Everything. That's what I said. All these starters, every one of them has a question mark you could point to. Except Nola was really good in the postseason, wasn't he?
That's
what I saw.
And part of the equation, I think, as you decide on these guys, I've said it before, if a guy has done it on the biggest stage, his postseason numbers, not like McCann numbers, Brian McCann numbers, who's awful in the postseason. So he wasn't a superstar.
Champion also.
But you look at guys who have done it, that's a giant plus. But you have to weigh everything. But all these guys have a question mark, all of them.
How about this? Just because it's fun, Aaron Nola, career ERA 3.72, career FIP 3.38. 2023 ERA, 4.46. 2023 FIP, 4.03.
Yep.
So not as
that
bad.
No.
That means that his cosmetic ERA number is not necessarily indicative of the season he had. It wasn't as bad as 4.5. Now, more like 4.
Your buddy with the Cubs, how do you know him?
Oh, he's my best friend. I lived with him.
I thought I was.
You're second.
All right.
But again, I mean,
After
no
that
one
debate,
cares.
you're
But
second.
because I'm interested in this, he shows me the data they have, and this is a minor league hitting instructor. But he shows how they scout, and he shows how they tunnel off pitches. Like if you watch Pitching Ninja on Twitter, and he's now on ESPN and everything. If you see how he does those overlays of how a pitcher's fastball, let's say, and their breaking pitch tunnel off each other. And it's great because when we were sitting at home and we go, God, what a terrible swing. That hitter's a moron. How could he swing at that? And then you realize that pitch looks exactly the same as his fastball, and whatever pitch he's tunneling off, the slider, whatever it is, and that ball either falls off the table or his four-seam fastball stays high, and you understand why these hitters flail.
And that is why Javi Baez is secretly a good baseball player. He's just facing better pitching.
But he's a good baseball player. It's just, didn't everyone on planet Earth think the Javi Baez, whoever he signed with, was going to be a horrible contract?
Yes.
I mean, everyone knew that was going to be an awful contract.
He's also horrible defensively.
He has great
right?
tags, though.
El Mago.
I mean,
He can do a swim move on a slide. However, that guy 100% decides before the ball is even thrown that he's swinging.
Here's another thing, though, Charlie. What you're saying is absolutely right because the stuff is filthy. I like to say at the major league level, as if I'm an insider.
Uh-huh.
But there are certain situations where I see guys have bad swings where they know what the pitcher can throw, and you have to defend against it. You know what I mean? There's also situational hitting that I think some guys don't have that in their toolbox.
I just
Baez
think
would be one of them.
I think when you see a hitter take a cock shot down the middle, and you go, we're allowed to say that, right?
Probably.
And you go, how the hell could he not swing at that? And then when, again, I'm telling you, if you love baseball, you should watch Pitching Ninja because he'll literally say, hey, you probably watched that and said, how the heck could Freddie Freeman not swing at that pitch? Here's why. And he shows how the ball that falls off and is in the dirt looks exactly like that fastball halfway to home plate.
Yeah, I
The
get it.
and these are the best hitters. These are the best hitters on earth.
Absolutely.